Yeah.
Very good morning, dear participants. We will start the session shortly.
Can we start now? It's 11.
11. Let's wait for another 2 minutes.
Okay.
I think close to 300 participants have joined us.
Yes, ma'am.
And shall we proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Suma, ma'am? Fine. Good morning, dear participants, to the last day of the FTP. Welcome to day 5 of the international webinar series on COVID-19, Facing Challenges with Optimism, the faculty development program organized by the PG and Research Department of Historical Studies, Kaide Millat Government College for Women. I, John Ruby, the coordinator of the FTP, am joined by Dr. K. Vijaya, convener of the faculty development program, and Dr. P. Somabala, the moderator of the day. Our resource person for the day is Mr. D.M. Bhaskar, Product Manager, HP Enterprise, USA. Dear participants, kindly note, repeating the instructions, the audio and video will be muted throughout the session. You can communicate with us at any time through the chat box. The session with Mr. G.M. Bhaskar will be followed by a question and answer session for which you can raise questions through the chat box. It will be moderated by Dr. P. Sumabala. Please do not press request to speak at any time as there are only presenters allowed in the session. Another point to be noted, please fill the feedback form carefully, which will be posted in the last 10 minutes of the session. We have enabled edit option for all the forms, so kindly check and correct in case of mistakes. Some participants forget to fill in their name in the form. Please be careful about it. Dear participants, another request, in case you have any connection disruption or your connection is disrupted, you can hit the reconnect button on the top of your screen or go back to the link in your mail which has come in from Webinar Jam to reconnect. It brings you back to the room. Lastly, a humble request to all participants, please use the chat box for questions alone. Please do not post anything else. We can generate any other information required through Webinar Jam. Thank you. Now, I request Dr. K. Vijaya, convener of the FTP, to welcome and introduce the speaker.
Thank you, Ms. John Ruby, the coordinator of the program. Very good morning to everyone present here. On behalf of the PG and Research Department of Historical Studies, Kaide Millat Government College for Women, Chennai, I extend a hearty welcome to all the participants for the final day session of this FDP program on COVID-19, Facing Challenges with Optimism. At the outset, I wholeheartedly thank the participants for your constant encouragement and enthusiastic participation in the smooth conduct of this webinar. மனித குலத்தின் உச்சகட்ட வெற்றிதான் செயற்கை நுண்ணறிவு. Amit Ray, the famous artificial intelligence scientist, said, as more and more artificial intelligence is entering into the world, more and more emotional intelligence must enter into leadership. Today, we have with us a person combined with artificial and emotional intelligence. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. D.M. Bhaskar, Product Manager, Hewlett Packard Enterprises, California, USA, who is going to address us on artificial intelligence at tipping point. Sir has completed his engineering graduation from Government College of Technology, Coimbatore, with distinction. He did his MBA focusing on strategy at University of Bradford School of Management, England. His credentials include machine learning certification from Stanford University, Honors Diploma in Network-Centered Computing, E-Commerce, Webmaster from Big Leap Academy, Quality Degree from Philip Crosby Institute. Further, he is a pragmatic certified product manager. Adding further to his cap, he is a certified practitioner of Luma Institute of Pittsburgh, USA, which very few have accomplished. Viழுmin, எழுமின், குறிக்கோளை அடையும் வரை அயராது உழைமின். Arise, awake and stop not till the goal is reached. This is the Taraga mantra of a resource person. The famous quote of Vivekananda is motivating factor of a resource person. Mr. G.M. Bhaskar started his career as software developer in HP Enterprises. Due to his insightful thought regarding products and services, he served in various capacities as group product manager, product line manager, senior product manager, software developer, etc. Through IP licensing, he planned artificial intelligence-based product for memory-driven computing from HV Labs to speed up risk computation for financial instruments. He is appreciated with consecutive Rockstar Awards in all his endeavors. Serious, sincere, systematic service, surely secure, supreme success is the slogan of our resource person. Sir has added to his credit 17 years of IT industry in product management, virtualization, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Currently, Sir is enhancing his skills in design thinking to help infrastructure think and act like humans. Mr. G.M. Bhaskar always does his task with passion and uses his intellectual capacity to achieve successful results. As a person of high caliber, he is very enthusiastic in various technologies and keeps himself updated with the theories of latest trends with the modern management. முடியுமா என்பது மூடத்தனம், முடியாது என்பது கோழைத்தனம், முடியும் என்பதே மூலதனம். முடியுமா என்பது மூடத்தனம், முடியாது என்பது கோழைத்தனம், முடியும் என்பதே மூலதனம். This is the secret of the success of our today's speaker. To say in a nutshell about today's speaker, I can say he is a technology geek and virtualization guru, as his understanding and knowledge of most aspects related to technologies are outstanding. With these few words, it's my pleasure to welcome our today's resource person, Dr. G.M. Bhaskar. Now over to our computer prodigy, Mr. G.M. Bhaskar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Vijaya. Good morning to all. Before I start, can you hear me well?
Yes, sir, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'm honored to be here amongst the faculty members who are shaping the next generation of leaders, great thinkers, scientists, and the people who are going to lead our country into the country of India into the next generation. And I want to emphasize on how we can use artificial intelligence in what we do and how we do in everyday life, about how we approach things. Before I start, I just wanted to show you the agenda on what it's going to be like. To start with, I'm going to be talking about what is artificial intelligence. Has it been there in the history? What's the timeline that people started talking about artificial intelligence? What are the examples in use today that we might be using without even knowing that we are using it? And why is it a tipping point at this point of time? Why not earlier? And what are the factors contributing to that? And why talk about this during the COVID situation when everybody is in lockdown period, trying to have endure the lockdown so that we can come out of it successfully. And I will also encourage, as faculty members leading the next generation into the future, to encourage your students to go about how acquiring new skills during this lockdown as well. Before we can look into what is artificial intelligence, let's look into what is intelligence. So intelligence, meaning what we have acquired over a period of years since our birth, and what we have acquired synthetic intelligence in terms of learning from our parents, from our colleagues, from our seniors, from our friends, and likes around. So the cognitive behavior of intelligence, if you can summarize, it will be like interacting with others, acquiring knowledge, reasoning, learning, perception, meaning how do I perceive an object without even knowing that I'm going to be doing something with that object, And above all, how do I solve problems that I encounter on a daily basis? And then manipulate the parameters that are in control of me to achieve the desired outcome. Well, these are all some high level definitions, but then let me give you an example of how we do things. On the left, you see an orange that everybody is familiar with, right? When you hold an orange, we don't actually see the orange and then think through it. How do I hold? What's the pressure to be applied? We just pick it up from a basket. That's the intrinsic intelligence that we gain from our learnings from our parents, from our society, from our community. At the same time, the same hand, you can see the second picture, it's holding an iron wrench. You know the iron wrench is going to be heavier than orange, and depending upon the size, you would apply a particular force. And then in order to achieve the desired outcome on using the wrench to say either tighten a nut or a bolt or wherever it is, you're going to be using certain amount of force. But then are humans the only ones that are going to be intelligence? The answer is no. We have heard from our stories from our parents and grandparents saying that we had a crow that was flying through the hot sun. It was thirsty enough. It was trying to find water, and the only place it could find water was in a jug laying nearby. The crow could not reach the water. It used intelligence to accumulate stones inside the jug, and then the water came up as the jug gets filled with the stone. So animals do possess intelligence. In certain cases, their intelligence are far more superior than human beings. But the point here is we have intrinsic capabilities of intelligence that we don't recognize ourselves, that we use every day. Now, having spoken about intelligence, right, I just want to spend some time on artificial intelligence, meaning what we can say about artificial intelligence is, and from the previous slide, I know the way I look the orange is different. I know the way I look the iron wrench is different. I hold it differently. But then can I make the computer systems and other systems that I use to think like a human being? That field of study is called artificial intelligence. Meaning, if you have a computer or if you have any electronic device that you want it to mimic a human behavior and thinking, that's what is called as artificial intelligence. So it started all the way back in 1950. It is not a relatively new field. I'm sure there are faculty members who have done far more research in the field of computer science. I'm just giving you a tip of an iceberg. There is far more research on artificial intelligence going all the way back to 1760s, but then it came as a separate field of intelligence in 1950 when Mr. Alan Turing, the renowned professor and doctorate in terms of bringing this field of artificial intelligence into existence. Now, how did it go about, right? Did Mr. Alan Turing ask about creating a complex artificial intelligence by itself? The answer is no. He started off with saying, okay, can I enable the system to think about the way humans can think? On the left-hand side, you would see the actual paper that was published by Dr. Allen, where he starts saying that I want machines to think like humans. So he devised a mechanism to test two participants over here. For example, in the slide that you have here, one is a computer, that's number A, and then the other person is a human, that's B. The interrogator is a C. The job of interrogator is to figure out based on the responses only, not by look and feel. Please remember that. Based on the response of A and B, whether that is a person or a system. Now, it came to a fruition that when the interrogator was going through the study, the answer was coming closer and closer to making the systems think like human beings depending upon the response. For example, if you say, what is sum of 1 plus 2? If the response from computer is 3, and if the response from a person and the B is 3, then the answer is more or less the same, and you can't distinguish between A or B, whether it is a human being or a computer that's answering it. And that started this field of study, right? This goes all the way back to 1950. Over a period of years, it has been enhanced significantly in terms of how it has come to life and the tipping point as of today. Now, The other aspects that I wanted to talk about, right? Why it has been waiting or why it has been in a dormant state so far. Fast forwarding into the modern age, why it has to wait at this point of time to be at the tipping point, right? Since when this industry work has been there in the existence, as you can see here in the timeline below, it's been there since 1950, as I pointed out earlier, as a separate field of intelligence or a field of science, and it's today we are in 2020 about deep learning. Now, it hasn't taken place in the last decade or two in a much rapid pace than what it is used to be, meaning we have exposure to so much data. There is one data point that comes to my mind is when I started my career back in 2010 or 2009 with HPE, the data point that we were looking at is in the year 2010, we would create about twice the data that we created in the last 50 years. Meaning, in the year 2010 alone, the amount of data that would be generated was roughly around the time from 1960 to 2009. That's the amount of data that we're talking about being generated in one single year. Fast forward to 2020, we are talking about every year the data that is getting accumulated and digested is quadrupling, meaning it's getting 4 times in terms of what the data is being collected. And fast forward even in future, by the year 2025, we will be heading towards a situation where we are 100x times the entire data in the entire universe put together from its prehistoric times. That's the amount of data that we are talking about. And that has led to deeper insights on how we want to take some actions, go back to our roots on how we understand certain things, develop algorithms on how we can process faster. But then developing algorithms is much simpler, right? Say, for example, if I figure out a way that I can do an addition of 1 plus 2 in less than 1 nanosecond, that's simpler to do. But processing the same amount of instruction over millions and millions of data points. Today, we are processing about trillions of data points in one of the examples that we have. But then doing that amount of calculation in a period of 1 second to 2 seconds involves huge amount of compute power. We have to have roughly farms and farms of servers crunching the data in order to get to where we were. And it's not like it wasn't available earlier. The amount of, now just to give you an example, right? When I started my career back in 2001, when I was interacting with some of the senior officials, they were saying the personal computer used to be the size of the display of the personal computer used to be the size of a cinema theater. And back in 1976, it used to cost them 3 lakh rupees. Now you can understand what's the progression that we have come forward today, because you can buy a laptop as low as 20,000 rupees for a decent configuration. Now, at the same time, the core processing power of the systems have gone much higher. For example, if I used to do a calculation of 100 instructions per second back in 1975, I'm able to do roughly around 2 giga calculations per second. That will be roughly around 2 per 9 calculations per second. Okay, so that amount of power is available to us today at a reasonable cost so that we can crunch the enormous data that's coming to us. At the same time, algorithms are also available. And these are not proprietary algorithms, meaning nobody is going behind the closed doors and saying, I own this algorithm. All of these algorithms are available free of cost to anybody and everybody who wants it. For example, TensorFlow provides it at free of cost. Anybody who wants to use their algorithms can go to their website, download their libraries, create programs, and start using it. Same is the case with Google. Their parent company Alpha had acquired DeepMind. They make medical research, and the use of artificial intelligence has advanced how soon a person with diabetes can be identified in certain specifics of the geographic locations. Same is the case with the other scientific research and the amount of crunching data, that the power of crunching data that we have and the horsepower that we have behind the crunching of data helped us to go solve about origins of life itself in terms of finding a better solution. Those are the high level background on on why it came into existence and how it is important. But then, why is it important today? Am I using it today? Some of you may be using Apple iPhones or Google Android-based phones. You would have come across Apple, in your case, Siri. It would, if you press your home button or hold it for a couple of seconds, it'll ask you, how can I help you? You can ask a question. It will come back and say, either it can fulfill, or it'll come back and say, what is the correct response? And the same case with Google Assistant. If you hold the home key with the data on, and by the way, all of this would require active connection to internet, either through your mobile phone data or through a Wi-Fi connection, because it has to go and talk to the server at the backend and then come back with a response. And then the same case, right? Microsoft, you have Cortana. In case you have noticed on Windows 10, you would have something seen like an icon coming up the taskbar saying, how can I help you? Same is the case with Amazon. Now, they are a bit different, right? Because they don't have their own version of operating system that goes in touch with B2C. Somewhere in future, they could come down and do that path. But then they have Echo. That's the smart device that can be connected to internet, and then you can ask questions in a conversation style, saying, hey Alexa, what's top news today? If you're subscribing it behind the screens to say, go and fetch from Times of India, it'll go and fetch from that and then say, these are the top news, which one you want to read more? And it's more or less like talking to a person in terms of how you interact with them. Now, all of these are like, okay, a part of artificial intelligence. It is something called as natural language processing, meaning how humans talk to each other. Like, hey, I wish somebody good morning, and then I say, how are you? They come back and say, yeah, I'm good, or I'm not good, and then the conversation starts. And that's the part of artificial intelligence called as natural language processing. And that's where Amazon comes in. Now, can I live without any of these? And the answer is, of course, yes. But then, will I be enhancing myself if I use this capability? Of course, yes. For example, I wouldn't advise doing this, but the example that I'm going to give is, I think we could benefit from that. If you are driving a car and if you want to send a message to somebody in your WhatsApp, you can either ask your Google Assistant saying, hey Google, or say calling, hey Siri, send message to this particular person in my contacts through WhatsApp that I'll be late by 5 minutes or 10 minutes. While you are driving your car, you'll be able to concentrate on the road. At the same time, you are sending a message to the other person that you are late by 5 minutes. So you can use that as a enhancement to your skill, multitask, and things like that. But then that's not the actual what I should say, the point that I'm here about. Is it being used in situations that could pose in life and death for artificial intelligence? And the answer is yes. There are situations where people have started using it in a vast majority of fields, as simple as automobiles, and then as complex as aeroplanes. I mean, if you are aware, autopilot mechanism has been there where they have trained it for years and years. In vast majority of the planes that you're flying, it's predominantly autopilot feature that's going on that we are not aware of. But then only in the taxis that are being towed from the gates all the way to the runway, it will be manned. The example that I'm going to give further down the line would be about how you can open up the thinking on how artificial intelligence can be used in our day-to-day life, and it can create an impact on how it can be applicable in different fields. Just to show you an example, right on the far left, I have the India map. Say, for example, 15 years ago or even 20 years ago, if I want to go somewhere, I used to stop by my two-wheeler or a four-wheeler and then ask people, I want to go to this place. What is the earliest route that I can go to? Or you would use a milestone if you're on a very long road trip to figure out whether I'm on a state highway or a national highway, or stop by in a on a highway and then ask a person who's coming over there, how do I go from here to there? And then it's not that much prevalent in India, but there are certain companies that came up and then said, I'm going to be using TomTom. That's nothing but a GPS. You don't require any data connection. It talks directly to the satellite. You enter your start location and then the end location. It is not that popular in India, but somebody tried to do it. It wasn't that successful, so they had to give it up. And then on the far right, you see Waze. Waze is not that much popular. It's not yet in India, but then the equivalent of it would be Google Maps. Waze is different from the way Google Maps operates. It's more or less like a community sourced learning, meaning if I install Waze in my mobile phone, and if there are others installing Waze in their mobile phone in and around me, they can communicate with each other. And then I'll tell you down the line how it happens with a practical example. This is one example that we can easily correlate to. And then the other examples, probably you can say Oyo Rooms or Booking.com that had come up with about that came about in the last 10 years or so, how they changed the existing infrastructure around the hospitality industry and booking rooms, how people wanted to spend less and less money on the actual rooms, because at the end of the day, if somebody is spending so much money to get their family out during a picnic or during a vacation, they should be spending more of their time outside, enjoying their time, and less on where they're actually spending it. But then that's again debatable. But the point here is it gives plenty of options in terms of bringing down the cost of the room itself if you want to. And one point to note here is Airbnb doesn't own any of these premises. It's basically a hub. Like Uber. So people who have extra rooms in their home need to pre-qualify. Somebody would come and verify, and then they can put it out on their website. It brought down the cost so much that it became more and more popular, at least in Europe and in US. You need to have reservation before you start out so that you don't end up in a situation that when you land up in a Airbnb hotel or a Airbnb room, you're essentially not being accommodated. But then that's the story of Airbnb. Now let's get into Uber, right? Uber, you can see on the graph on the right over here how they have changed completely the taxi industry. Uber up until a certain point in time, except in specific geographic locations, they didn't own any taxis at all. They changed the entire taxi industry, saying, I can gather all the intelligence information about what the user is asking for, where the taxi is. I can direct the taxi from one particular location to the other particular location. Now that all brings into the point that I'm allowing anonymous data to be collected on behalf of me from the taxi itself, and as a user that I'm allowing that information to be used to provide a better deals on about how much easier I want to make my ride simple from point A to point B. And these are being used in improvising the algorithms over a period of time. The moment they started seeing the dip in terms of what I should say, single rides, they started providing the Uber pool rides because they wanted to keep provide the same experience at a much shared cost, lower cost than at peak times if they were to do it in a single ride by themselves. But then it doesn't stop there, right? Say, for example, why is it at a tipping point? A tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell says in his book, a famous book I would recommend to read, it's nothing but a magic moment in time where it crosses of just being an idea and then becomes a wildfire, and that exactly is a tipping point. I'm amazed that I'm talking under the current situation of tipping point under COVID, but everybody can relate. Now, prior to that, when I say tipping point, I had to give examples of how it has happened. Now, given the situation, everybody understands what tipping point is. The point here about artificial intelligence is for the last 60 to 70 years, everybody has been pursuing enhancing the skills about how I can use existing computing power and how much effort that I have to put in. For example, if you have to put in 1 millimeter of effort on the left-hand side of this in order to raise the technology, you need to spend only 1/100th of the effort to move kilometers once you cross a tipping point. And artificial intelligence today is at that tipping point. And the reason I'll show you why in the next slide or so. Earlier, if you recall, I was talking about examples, right, from Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. I was talking about, these are natural language processing that doesn't, your life doesn't depend on it. You can use it to enhance your skills. But then, are there examples out there today that my life depends on? And the answer is yes. Not only in the field of research, in order to figure out if I give my blood samples to test at a young age of 10, can you predict at what point of time, given my pedigree, when will I be contracting diabetes if I'm having a diabetes hereditary, right? Those kinds of research are in full swing. There are some early results, but I'll leave it to the experts to say where they are with the research and how they can bring it up. But then on this slide over here, you can see the Tesla, right? Tesla, fortunately, we just live a couple of miles from the Tesla factory itself. You can see here that's a car. It has an autopilot feature. It sees the road. It understands what an eye would see. Say, for example, it sees the milestone over there, or the speed indicator over there says 65, and it makes it a point that it doesn't go beyond 65 miles per hour. No matter what, if you're an autopilot, it doesn't go beyond 65 miles per hour. And if there is a car that's ahead of you that's slowing down, it understands how the car is slowing down and adjusts the speed. At the same time, if there are any traffic signals coming around, it would understand what's a red light, what's an amber light, and what's a green, and it would take appropriate turns. Now, I'm not talking about a test within a lab. I'm going to show you a video for some reason it doesn't allow me. Give me a second. Let me see if I can bring it up in my screen over here. For a moment, I'm going to be sharing my screen and then come back over here so that I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. On the left-hand side, you have, this is an actual marketing video from Tesla. It's not my own creation. So I'm going to be pressing the button. It's a 2 minutes video. I'm not going to spend the entire 2 minutes on it. You can see the person is actually entering the location, and then the car starts to drive by itself. You can see the steering wheel, it's turning. He's not doing anything. It's a 45 minutes drive for him from his location. You can see it's observing the traffic lights, green, red, and moving forward. And it also makes sure it makes the appropriate turns. Now it's joining the highway. It understands what's the speed. And now it sees a car in front of it. It understands how much speed it has to be, and see the cornering of the car. It doesn't change the lane, all of it. And you can see the rider right on the left-hand side. He's not even touching the steering wheel. It's doing everything on its own. And this is a car that's available for anybody to purchase. It comes at a higher price because the technology is naive. In terms of mass production, it's not there yet, but then it's closer to what we can get in terms of the usage system and driving it on a highway. Now, that's actually, I'm going to forward it a bit and then see where exactly it comes to. Now he's waiting to see whether he can turn right so that he can pull up. Yeah, now we're here. It has come to its destination. He's parking the car and then getting out and then closing it up. So this is one video, right? This has been there in the market for roughly around a couple of years now. And on the right, fortunately, there's also a couple of miles from our house, whereby we have seen this in our complex itself coming in terms of robotaxi. Here, I'll play the full video so that you can read through what exactly is happening. They started in 2019. It's a robotaxi, and then it's available only in specific locations in the US. There is no actual driver in certain cases. It drives on its own on road, and you need to have what I should say, a safe driving policy. It assumes that everybody who's driving around follows the same mechanism, and in this scenario, you see that the person who is actually driving in the highway or the road is using the phone to do whatever he wants. And here's an example of what are the data points that it collects in and around the car 360-degree at any given point of time. And crunching that amount of data would require a lot of horsepower on the car itself at any given point of time. And that's the harness that we are talking about, that's available at affordable cost. All the intelligence that you would require around the car to think like a human being is available. Now, I'm going to stop here and then go back to the web session, and then, okay. Okay, so now, I showed you about a real life example of how automobiles are changed, or automobiles are being changed with artificial intelligence in terms of the way we interact with them, in terms of the way we use them. But then Indian government is also not far. For example, I spoke about natural language processing in terms of communications with the virtual assistants like Siri, Google Assistants, Alexa with Amazon Echo, or Cortana with Microsoft. Our Indian Railways has also introduced something called as a chatbot. It's not a natural language processing conversationalist, but it's also a chat mechanism whereby some form of intelligence is going on. Here you can see in the screenshot that I took a couple of hours ago, it was asking about, it has an alert based on the current COVID situation. At the same time, the most common questions that's been asked in the last couple of weeks. What are the trains that I cancel? When will the refund that will come to me? So that the response is already proceeded in the backend, and then it comes back at the next instant you start finishing the question itself. So that's one example of how even the regular interface that we go to, in this case, I think they've called us as Disha, that have this some kind of artificial intelligence that's going on. Again, we allow data to be collected, and that's why we are able to move forward with how we are able to do things like this. Now, all of this goes over my head. I have no idea what you're talking about. You can throw at me, and then I'll say, just bear with me for next 2 slides, and I'll tell you how this works. For the benefit of everybody, I'm going to switch over to Tamil and then say how this works. So, school இருக்கீங்க, 2 பசங்க இருக்காங்க, ஸ்டூடெண்ட் 1 அண்ட் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் 2. ஸ்டூடெண்ட் 1 ஓட வீடு இங்கே இருக்கு. நம்ம யூஸ்வலா மெஷர் பண்ற டைம், ஸ்கூல்ல இருந்து வீட்டுக்கு வர டைம் ஒரு 10 மினிட்ஸ் ஆகும். அதே மாதிரி ஸ்டூடெண்ட் 2 ஸ்கூல்ல இருந்து வீட்டுக்கு வரதுக்கு 20 மினிட்ஸ் ஆகும். இவங்க 2 பேர் ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ், ஸோ தட் இவங்க அம்மா அப்பாவும் ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ். இவங்களோட அம்மா அவங்களோட கால் பண்ணுவாங்க, அவங்களோட அம்மா இவங்களுக்கு கால் பண்ணுவாங்க. இப்போ நான் வந்து அவங்களோட யூஷுவல் டைம், ஸ்கூல் காலையில் 8 o'clock ஸ்டார்ட் ஆகுது. தே ஹேவ் லஞ்ச் பிரேக். அட் த எண்ட் ஆஃப் த டே 3 o'clock வந்து முடிக்கிறாங்க ஸ்கூலில். ஸோ நான் எக்ஸ்பெக்ட் பண்ணுவேன் as a ஃபாதர், இந்த கிட் வந்து by around 3:10 should be at home. இப்போ அந்த டைமை நான் நோட் பண்ண ஆரம்பிக்கிறேன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன். சம் டேஸ் இட் குட் பி 3:09, சம் டேஸ் இட் குட் பி 3:10, ஆர் இட் குட் பி 3:15 for the kid student home, because அது 10 minutes ஆகும் வந்து ரீச் ஆகிறதுக்கு. அட் த சேம் டைம் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் 2 வந்து வீட்டுக்கு வந்து ரீச் ஆகிறதுக்கு வந்து 20 minutes ஆகுது. அந்த டைமை நோட் பண்ண ஆரம்பித்தேன் அப்படின்னா 21 ஆகும், சில நாள் 22 ஆகும், சில நாள் 23 ஆகும். நான் இப்போ இதை வந்து ஒரு மாசத்துக்கு கலெக்ட் பண்றேன். அதை கலெக்ட் பண்ணி இந்த டேட்டாவை வந்து இங்கே ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்றேன். இப்போ பார்த்தீங்க அப்படின்னா ஸ்கூல் ஸ்டார்ட் ஆகுறது 8 o'clock, June 8லேருந்து June 26 வரைக்கும் நான் மெஷர் பண்றேன். ஸ்கூல் எண்ட் ஆகுறது 3 o'clock. ஸ்டூடெண்ட் 1 ஆவரேஜ் டைம் நான் 10 minutes சொல்லியிருந்தேன். இப்போ பார்த்தீங்க அப்படின்னா ப்ளஸ் ஆர் மைனஸ் 2 to 3 minutes கொடுத்தீங்கன்னா எல்லாமே வந்து இந்த லைன்ல ஃபிட் ஆயிடும். பை ரஃப்லி அரௌண்ட் 3:09 to 3:12 அந்த குழந்தை வந்து வீட்டுக்கு வந்து சேர்ந்துடும். அதே மாதிரி இந்த குழந்தை வந்து 3:20 to 3:23 வீட்டுக்கு வந்து சேர்ந்துடும். ஆனா ஒரே ஒரு நாள் மட்டும் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் குழந்தை வீட்டுக்கு வந்து சேர்றதுக்கு 3:25 ஆகுது. நம்மளோட இன்ட்ரின்சிக் பிஹேவியர் என்ன அப்படின்னா 3:15 அப்புறம் இவ்வளவு நேரம் ஆகாதே, ஏன் குழந்தை வந்து சேரல நம்ம வீட்டுக்கு அப்படின்னு சொல்லி யோசிக்க ஆரம்பிப்போம். ஸோ நம்ம வந்து ஈதர் ஸ்கூலுக்கு கால் பண்ணி கேட்போம், இவங்க வீட்டுக்கு நடந்து வரதா இருந்தா வெளியே நின்று பார்ப்போம், இல்லை ஆட்டோ ட்ராப் பண்ணுறதா அந்த ஆட்டோ மேனை கால் பண்ணுவோம், இல்லை ஸ்கூல் பஸ் டிரைவரை கால் பண்ணுவோம், என்ன ஆச்சுன்னு கேட்போம். அதே சமயத்துல இந்த வீட்டில் இருக்கவங்க ஸ்டூடெண்ட் டூவோட பேரண்ட் வந்து ஸ்டூடெண்ட் ஒன் பேரண்ட்க்கு கால் பண்ணி கேட்பாங்க, உங்க பையன் வீட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டானா, உங்க பொண்ணு வீட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டாங்களா. இப்போ இந்த இன்ட்ராக்ஷன் இருக்கு பாத்தீங்களா, ஸ்டூடெண்ட் டூ பேரண்ட் வந்து ஸ்டூடெண்ட் ஒன் பேரண்ட் கால் பண்றது, அந்த இன்ட்ராக்ஷன் வந்து கம்யூனிட்டி லேர்னிங். இந்த ஹைலைட் பண்ணிருக்கேன் பாத்தீங்களா, ஒரு நாள் மட்டும் 325க்கு வராங்க ஸ்டூடெண்ட் ஒன், அண்ட் இன்னொரு நாள் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் டூ வந்து 335க்கு வராங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு, அது வந்து அனாமலி. ஸோ ஒரு ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ஸ் வந்து எப்படி கால்குலேட் பண்றாங்க அப்படின்னா, இத மாதிரி டேட்டாவை மணிக்கணக்கா ஆவரேஜா கலெக்ட் பண்ணி ஒரு ஸ்டூடெண்ட் இல்லாம எல்லா ஸ்டூடெண்ட், உங்க தெருவில் இருக்க எல்லா ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டுக்கும், அந்த ஸ்கூல்ல படிக்கிற எல்லா ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டுக்கும், அந்த டிஸ்ட்ரிக்ட்ல இருக்க எல்லா ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டுக்கும், அந்த ஸ்டேட்ல இருக்க எல்லா ஸ்டூடெண்ட் கலெக்ட் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சோம்னா we would have tons and tons of data. அந்த டேட்டா வச்சு என்னால என்ன பண்ண முடியும், அதுதான் ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ஸோட மெயின் பர்பஸ். இப்போ ரொம்ப சிம்பிளா சொல்லிட்டேன் இந்த ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ஸோட என்ன பண்ண முடியும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. இதோட எக்ஸ்ட்ரீம் எக்ஸாம்பிள் கூகுள் மேப்ஸ். இந்த இடத்துல நான் சென்ட்ரல் ரயில்வே ஸ்டேஷன்ல இருந்து காயிதே மில்லத் காலேஜுக்கு வர ட்ரை பண்றேன். இது வந்து உங்களோட நைட் டைம்ல போட்டேன், ஸோ தட் இட்ஸ் 8 minutes. இப்போ பாத்தீங்கன்னா 2-3 ஆப்ஷன் காட்டுது. எந்த ஆப்ஷன் அப்படின்னா, இதே மெக்கானிசம்ல அட் எனி கிவன் பாயிண்ட் ஆஃப் டைம் இஃப் ஐ எம் கலெக்டிங் டேட்டா, திஸ் இஸ் வாட் ஐ எம் கோயிங் டு பி டூயிங். நீங்க எப்போ டேட்டா யூஸ் பண்ணி ஸ்டார்டிங் பாயிண்ட் அண்ட் எண்டிங் பாயிண்ட் கொடுக்குறீங்களோ, Google Maps will bring out what's the best route to go forward. And if there is something happening, and if you have data on, and if traffic updates are happening, you will also see that it will reroute you to some other route if possible. So இதுதான் வந்து actual implementation of artificial intelligence. இது வந்து ரொம்ப சிம்பிளா சொல்லிட்டேன், but behind the screens there are tons and tons of calculations happening, so that you will be able to correlate what exactly is happening.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. Some participants are asking, could you please explain in English also?
Oh, okay, sure. Let me go back. Okay, so I'll start again. Sorry for the inconvenience. So what I've done so far explained is the illustration related to the use of artificial intelligence. But then if you are a layman and if you're trying to understand what artificial intelligence is, I don't understand so far whatever you are told, Mr. Bhaskar, this all doesn't make sense to me. As an uninitiated person, how can I understand artificial intelligence? Now here in this slide, what I'm showing about are two students, student one and student two. They are leaving the school, or let me start. They have a school starting at 8 o'clock, and then they are going to be leaving the school at 3 o'clock. Student one lives closer to school, so that the student one can reach home in around 10 minutes, and student two can reach home in about 20 minutes. Now, evidently, over a period of time, as the students go to school and then come back, we observe their patterns. Knowingly and unknowingly, we come to a conclusion that the student one by 3:10, roughly give or take 2 minutes or 3 minutes, should be at home. Now, student two, give or take 2 minutes, should be at home by 3:22 or 3:23 or whatever it is. And if you start calculating the data for a month, this is what you would end up with in the next slide. And I've plotted the data in a time axis scale, x-axis being the days and the y-axis being the time. And then you can see that for vast majority of the days, student one has come within the 10-minute time frame, and then student two has come within the 20-minute time frame. But then there is an instance where student one and student two have gone beyond their usual time of 10 minutes. Now, if I'm a parent as a student one, I'm trying to figure out after 3:15 what is happening. The thoughts that would be going in my mind is, okay, did the student one or the child suffer any injuries, or is there any traffic delay that's causing my child not to return home safely, or is there anything else going on? The moment it crosses the threshold of 3:15 or 3:20, you start calling up your auto person who is dropping the student at home, or the bus driver in case the student is coming in from bus. In the same time, as I was talking about, student 2 and student 1 families are much closer. Student 2 parent calls the student 1 asking about, has the student 1 reached home, because it's much later than their usual time. In this case, student 1 parent will say, or likely to come back to student 2 parent and say, no, this is also the same thing that I'm worrying about. I will give you a call immediately when student 1 comes home. In the next couple of minutes, student 1 comes home. Student 1 parent calls student 2 parent and then says he has reached home. Now you can expect your child to reach home in the next 10 minutes. Now, the interaction that's happening between student 1 and student 2 is community learning. The highlight over here in terms of the highlighted 325 for student 1 and 335 for student 2, that's the anomalous behavior. So in simple terms, what I've done is I've explained you how to identify an anomaly for a data that you have gathered over a period of time. I've also explained you what is the community learning that happens between the data and the conversation between them. Now extrapolate this. If I start collecting the data for students, for the students that my child is participating in, say for example, grade 1, section A. And if I do that extrapolation to all students in grade 1 on that particular school, and if I extend it further for all schools in that particular area, and even extend it further for all schools in a particular district, I would end up with trucks and truckload of data. And at the same time, if I calculate this and I observe this pattern at a national level, I would even end up with exponential data. And what we do with the data is what artificial intelligence is all about. And a straight correlation would be that we use Google Maps day in and day out to travel from one place to another place. But then if you're conversant, if you're not comfortable using it, that's okay. But then the point here is the same amount of data is being collected from point A to point B. You can schedule at a point time in future to figure out what's the traffic is going to be, how are there are there alternate routes available to me, and things like that. Now that's the actual mechanism that's going on. In this case, if there is a delay, then Google will automatically redirect you to something else that is grayed out over here as an option. And if that is also getting delayed, Google will also redirect you to over here. And that's the community learning. And the way the community learning happens is if you have opened up a Google app and if you're stuck in a particular place, it communicates back to the server and then says, I'm stuck here for so many hours, so many minutes, I'm not moving, so I should flag it as a red. And that's how you see that when you turn on traffic updates, it turns to red. Now this is what is happening behind the screens, and it helps an user to move from point A to point B seamlessly without even having to think about, okay, what are the alternate routes? Is it a one way? Can I go in? Are there any obstacles to going down that path? The infrastructure in India is not yet far in tier 2 and tier 3 cities in terms of if there are any accidents, it can be communicated back because of lack of data over there. But then in major metro cities, that should be possible. But then now that I've explained, it would have come to a point that it all is happening in terms of artificial intelligence, right? For example, the famous, what I should say, the famous the scientist after Alan Turing, Joseph Weizenbaum, has said the machines have made intelligence in wondrous ways to think about. They do some magic behind the screens, but the more I uncover what is behind the screens, it comes to me like it is just a simple procedure. And that's what I've done to you today. It's just a simple procedure that goes on repeatedly over a period of time, enhancing, tweaking on a daily basis, and then applying that to normal life. Well, somebody could argue that, well, I can do this, but then the point is, if you're able to do it internally for one child, clinging on to the earlier example, can you do that for all the childs within your area, for all the childs within the district, all the childs within the same state? It's humanly not possible, and that's where artificial intelligence comes into the picture. Okay, now having said that, what are the impacts that is going to have, right? Because I want to have sufficient time for any questions that may come along. I promise you this is the last slide that I have, and sorry, this is the penultimate slide that I have, and I'll go on to the last slide. The impact that's going to have on various verticals, I'm not talking about any technology vertical. You can see here I have listed on verticals that would be present in far corners of Earth that you can think about. Say, from example, tourism or travel, all the way to oil exploration in terms of research, in terms of chemicals. All of this have impact on infrastructure. And if you specifically see, the impact on high-tech sector is ranked 5th, but if you see the other sectors, it's much, much higher. So my request to you as fellow leaders, and that lands me in call to action on how you should be advising your students of how to open up their minds to go about acquiring skills like artificial intelligence and use it in their day-to-day life. And why now? Why not earlier? So we didn't have, when I was studying back in my college days, I didn't have something called as Coursera or Udemy or anything like that. Anybody with an email ID, with access to network, internet, and then with access to an electronic device should be able to get onto internet, subscribe themselves, and these are very well-known professors in the entire industry. For example, the machine learning course that is listed over here is the one that I took myself. That's taught by Andrew Ng. He's a well-respected fellow in terms of the artificial intelligence being used within Baidu. That's the Chinese search engine equivalent of Google. And he's also went on to create some other startups as well. Now, my request to you is, as leaders of guiding the next generation of the leaders and the great thinkers, I would urge you to use this lockdown time to request your students to go out and experiment themselves with new technology like artificial intelligence, acquire new skills, so that when we endure and come out of the COVID situation, we are there ready to take on challenges that we are already enduring right now. Okay, that's it. Let me see if there are any questions.
Sir, if you have completed your presentation, our moderator will moderate the questions.
Oh yes, I'm done with my presentation, madam. Sorry about that.
Yes. May I now request Dr. Sumabala, the moderator, to moderate the question and answer session.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay. Thank you, Ms. Bhaskar. There are several questions. May I proceed now?
Yes, please go ahead.
The first question is from Kanmani Vanilla. How about the intelligence capacity of an hypersensitivity child?
That's a very valid question, right? So you would have extremes in terms of understanding the intelligence itself. For example, I can give you the example of my daughter itself. She's a colic. When she was born, she used to cry around hours and hours. We were trying to figure out what exactly is going on in her mind, but then at the end of it, we had to endure it. In the case of hypersensitive child, you need to be sure that the training that you give to her in terms of coping up with the new information that is being fed to her or him is adequate enough, and you're not overwhelming, because as a parent it can be overwhelming to ourselves itself.
Thank you. Next question is from K. Balasubramanian. What is the difference between artificial intelligence and human intelligence? And artificial intelligence replace human?
Okay, so I'll start with a quote when I think it was said by Bill Gates. So missions will start thinking like missions will start thinking like humans, and there will be a point in future where humans will stop thinking like human beings, and technology will take over. What that means is essentially we are trying to bring missions like computers more and more closer to human beings, meaning what I see from my eyes. Say, for example, if I open up my eye in the morning, I see sunlight, I see what's the time now, and things like that. And if a computer is open up, if it is able to recognize those kinds of attributes from what's happening around me, and that intelligence being imparted into the computer is called as artificial intelligence. And the intelligence or cognitive capability of a human being is like when they open their eye, they see a light, or they see a vehicle in front of them, or they see a parent or a friend in front of them. That's the cognitive capability that we have developed over a period of time. And that's the human intelligence perspective.
Thank you. There's another question from the same person. What is the most advanced AI right now in the present scenario?
Okay, so it's a tricky question because everybody is trying to fuel an investment in terms of artificial intelligence. If you take any vendor that is out there in terms of the infrastructure, when I say infrastructure, it's the information technology infrastructure vendors. Everybody is using artificial intelligence one way or the other. The key thing to remember is one might have the best algorithm in the world that could be super efficient in things doing the way they are. But if you're not able to train the data well, there is no good algorithm that can be called as best algorithm. Meaning it's like how you bring up your child over a period of time. During its early years, it would learn that, okay, I need to do this, I can't do this. And then during the teenage, they'll be rebellious. And then after that, they will get to a point where they understand the world and then start taking bold steps. The artificial intelligence in different sectors are in different ages of infancy. Some of them are in a very high level, especially in automotive sector. The example that I showed you about Tesla earlier, for automotive sector, you can say that's the number one for automotive sector, because the likes of Hyundai, Kia, Audi, all of them are following suite, and I think that will be available in majority of these parts of the world over a period of next couple of years.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar. The next question is from Dr. Netra Subramanian. If artificial intelligence is occupying the globe, it's fine in purview of progress. But what about the unemployment scenario? Because according to the survey, by next few years, this happens. How would you justify this?
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, I understand that if artificial intelligence is going to replace humans, what would happen to the jobs that are existing as humans that we know, right? If that's the question, the answer is do not worry about it. There has been a book written about the rise of robo, where the pioneer thinking around if robots take over the human jobs that are being done as of today, how we will go about um, uh, um, addressing the jobs that is not yet there, at the same time how it will be doing that. To put you in a different nutshell, right, I'll give you a typical scenario that I was working in almost 17 years ago. So the central processing unit, or the chip that we have in a laptop, it goes through different phases of testing in terms of whether the chip itself are good and things like that. This was 17 years ago, believe me. There is a robo that used to check the entire functionality of the chip itself in about 15 seconds. If a person has to do that, it would take about weeks to do that testing. And when I say this 17 years ago, this was in existence, nobody would have believed that this was in existence. And it has gone to such an extent that it's part and parcel of the entire production facility as of now. If you ask whether the jobs have disappeared, the answer is no. On the other hand, it has enhanced our skill in terms of how we can mass produce this at a much lower cost. Because I deploy these robots, I can bring down the cost much faster, and then I can produce the chips much at a larger scale than I used to be producing. So in a way, we should embrace this artificial intelligence as a mechanism and view from this point of view that it enhances human being and also provides a mechanism to move forward and bring technology closer to humanity.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar. The next question is from Sridevi Tyagarajan. What will be the future role of artificial intelligence in education and teaching scenario? How should the teachers be prepared?
Okay, so that's a very good question, right? Because I'll give you an example of Amazon Echo. I don't know whether you can see the behind my screen. So that cylindrical device behind me is the Amazon Echo. So what happens is if I start conversation with her, they'll tell Alexa will tell me that yeah, this is what can be done. A futuristic version that could be anybody's guess, but one futuristic version that anybody can paint is there will be lots of virtual assistants coming into the place. But then don't take away the human-centered approach on how you can bring about. Uh, Please do remember how you can train a child to become a much better citizen in a country with a proper upbringing. It's the same principle that applies to the artificial intelligence itself. In distant future, if we talk about having virtual assistants teaching the students, you would require more number of teachers teaching the same stuff to the intelligent engines that are going on behind the screens. In other words, teachers should start embracing this fact that yes, this I'm going to be part of this change when that comes in the future, and I'm going to be preparing my students in terms of how I want to be approaching them, rather than saying, "Oh, this is going to be taking my job away," or "I don't understand the basics of it." It's just pure statistics. Say, for example, if you're not comfortable with mathematics, you can just say observation over a period of time. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Vidya Priya. Can you suggest any open source softwares to implement artificial intelligence?
Okay, so I'm just trying to see if I can share my screen. I can't. Okay, so TensorFlow. So it's TNSOR Flow, FLOW. You can do a Google search that is available open source. You can download. They have the mechanism to use your mobile phone camera to identify objects. You can test it. I would advise you have a separate phone, because if you brick your phone, meaning it is not bootable, it's a costly affair. So you have a spare phone, start doing testing in that. At the same time, you also have AutoML from Google. You can start doing it. You can start experimenting with it. You don't have to break your head. I have to write everything from scratch. There are plenty of open source modules available. And these are all open source components. You can contribute to them over a period of time. The more you spend time with it, the more you'll become conversant with that.
Thank you. What are the ethical issues related to collecting data and how to prevent it interfering with the privacy of individuals? That's a question from Sridevi.
Okay, so that's a very, very hot topic that everybody is talking about in the digital side of the world, right? Say, for example, and thanks for bringing up that question. Am I comfortable enough in sharing the data that I'm sharing with anybody that I'm not knowing of? For example, if you are a friend, I can share it with you. I received a call from another friend. We were speaking about this. But if somebody else as a third person listening to it, I'm not comfortable with it, and anybody else would not be comfortable with it. Like I said earlier, the artificial intelligence that is being used is in its nascent stage, in its very, very early stages, and people are bringing in that capability about how do I train the data ethically to be biased towards the ethics of human values. And there's lots of trainings going on, and if you had recently noticed, there have been some projects that have been cancelled because the bias towards something like um, uh, unethical behavior is coming into the forefront. I'll quote an example from movie Indiran in Tamil, and you can also see that in Robo. When the Robo comes into existence, you would have Santanam and these. I forgot the name of the other actor. They would start using swear words to train the actual robo itself, and then when Rajni would come along, yeah, Rajni would hear the words, and then he would ask about, did you teach this? And you can immediately realize what we teach the algorithm is what we get back. So our vigilance around how we teach the engines behind the scenes and what we teach them is much more important than how we collect them, because we can always neglect what we don't want to collect actually.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar. Then another question is there any data related to COVID and its prevalence?
Yes. So DeepMind, This was a research company that was bought over by Google, and lots of companies are doing open source. And you can go to DeepMind.com. They have predictions about protein structures for COVID-19 situations and how artificial intelligence is helping them in terms of galvanizing the response to things like this. And even companies based out of Silicon Valley are also opening up their intelligence algorithms to be used to solve a remedy or find a remedy for the current pandemic that we are in.
Okay, next one is Dr. Geeta Karpasamy. She's asking, kindly shed some light on the use of artificial intelligence on highways where there are accidents happening and no one is around to help them. How can doctors reach such patients?
Okay, that's a very good question, right? Even before artificial intelligence comes into the picture, let me ask a question. Let me go back to the movie Marcel in Tamil, where we had no hospital itself in the first place, almost back in 30 years ago in the flashback. So first and foremost, even if artificial intelligence is there, what's the vicinity of nearest hospital? That's what needs to be established. And Google is trying closer in terms of Google Maps in places. So off late, in one of the examples that I was sharing, on the bottom side of the screen, you would have seen what's the restaurants near me, what's a hotel near me, and they are enhancing their algorithms in ways that you can find out what's the nearest hotspot. But then Uber also brought in the concept of pressing a panic button if something goes wrong within their cab and things like that. The vendors are trying their best to do that. If you ask me whether they are closing the gap, we are just taking baby steps in going there. If to take a wild guess, it could be a couple of years before we can say that how accidents response to be in a highway where there is nobody around there in the highway, and how we respond to that. The response time can be or the alert can be sent right away from a device that is tracking, but the response after the alert is what matters to the patient during the highway itself. And we have to enhance that before approaching this problem, actually.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Dr. A. Satish Kumar. Which industry might benefit the most from the use of artificial intelligence and why?
So all the industries that I spoke about in one of the earlier slides, right, will benefit over a period of time with artificial intelligence. But then if you want to pick up one industry that's as a low-hanging fruit, under the current lockdown situation may not be a right example. Let's wind back to December of 2019. If you are going to head out to a vacation somewhere within India, you would go to booking.com or GoIbibo, book your rooms, and they would come up and say, a user who booked earlier booked a similar hotel like this, or these are the similar hotels that fit your criteria. That's the artificial intelligence that I'm talking about. You could have seen this in Amazon.com itself and then Flipkart.com itself, whereby it will say users who bought this also bought this. Are you interested in this? So, which are low-hanging fruit, right? Or the industries which are low-hanging fruit in terms of e-commerce, where the tolerance levels to mistakes are much lower. In terms of whether if it's incorrect product being shipped, or they can be okay to wait for some more time and things like that. That's where it is getting used right now.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Hema Malini. How this AI trend will be in the future? What is its impact on the human race in the future?
Okay, so future, if you assume everything is going to be artificial intelligence and it's going to take over mankind, I'll tell you the answer is no. Human being as a species is known to survive the harshest conditions alongside with animals. That's why we've been surviving so many thousands of years. And artificial intelligence in this case is an enhancer of our skills on how we do things smarter, quicker, and more, or do things more in a shorter span of time. So embracing it will help us. Say, for example, when we started using Google Maps, it was like, okay, from point A to point B. But then Uber came along, they started using Google Maps behind the screens, and then Ola came along, they also started using it, and everybody starts using it by behind the screens. So that hasn't taken away the actual job of a driver, or that hasn't taken away the actual job of going from point A to point B. Yes, humans will be, their experience of doing this will be much different, but the core industries as such will remain there, and we have to advance it in whatever form and shape that we do.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bhaskar. Thank you so much for patiently answering all the questions. May I now request Dr. Vijaya to take over the session?
Sir, will you be able to spare a few more minutes for some more questions which are sent to us through private chat box?
Yeah, sure.
One of the professor has asked how artificial intelligence work in the field of medicine.
Oh, okay. So one example that I can give you that some of the researchers are currently exploring in one of the universities is if I know the information through my blood, through blood samples that is collected over a period of time, can I predict what is the inflection point that I would get to diabetes, or at what is the inflection point that I'm prone for a cardiac arrest? By that, what I mean is, if I am a patient, or if I am giving my blood samples, say from starting at the age of 15, and then I've been giving blood samples all the way up to the age of 55 and 60, and if something, God forbidden, happens with me in terms of the identifying of diabetes itself at a particular point of time, can that data be used for a similar person with the same traits in blood cells when it should be careful in terms of the inflection point itself? The researchers are currently exploring that. It's being used predominantly in the field of science, not only to we are going back to the roots of how the research was conducted earlier, but also to figure out how Earth came into existence that I spoke about earlier, right? How the origin of life started itself. So we have had lots of research on that, and one Mr. Stephen Hawking, the well-known scientist, he has also used that intelligence to figure out how we came into existence, or how Earth came into existence, from different theories and things like that.
Thank you, sir. Then another question from Dr. Nasreen Begum. Currently, almost every large nation is spending a lot of resources on the creation of autonomous weapons that can be used in upcoming conflicts. This is a dangerous precedent of the application of artificial intelligence. Could you please explain?
Yes, this is again, this is what I should say, a sensitive topic, and people who are actually developing the algorithms are very, very cognizant that this shouldn't fall into the hands of anybody who's set out to do unethical work. And I don't know if you are observant enough, or if you have observed earlier. I think it was last year, one of the projects that one of the big companies that was trying to was being used in autonomous warfare. The people who actually developed it started protesting against the company that it shouldn't be used and they should withdraw from that project. And as a result, the big company had to listen to the people, and they had to walk out of the project. It was a multi-billion-dollar deal, and they had to walk out of the project because people were ethical enough to say, I don't want to use the algorithm to start an autonomous warfare. That's not the way that it should be looked at.
Thank you, sir. Will you be able to spare your time for two more questions?
Yeah, definitely.
One question from Dr. K. Mallarvedi. What is your suggestion for the younger generation in this artificial intelligence dominated area from the point of employment market?
Okay, so now, I can tell you a practical example. The other day I was looking into research on how the existing college students can use artificial intelligence that is available from TensorFlow or any other open source mechanism, right? So if you are going to be advising your students, if they have hands-on experience on developing software, it could be a very simple program. Find an Android emulator, use your laptop, use it to scan an object in front of you, and ask them to identify through the camera whether it's a mouse or a keyboard or a human being. If believe me, it will take only a couple of days for them to figure out if you provide them this appropriate steps from TensorFlow and things like that. There are already plenty of examples available and YouTube self-help videos available as well. Once they figure this out, sit back and watch how they are developing the rest of the journey on their own. So the best way to, my advice would be is point them to the right resources, guide them, and take a seat back and how they develop their future itself. Because believe me, you will surprise yourself on how quickly they are able to embrace this and solve this much faster than we are able to think through this.
And the last question, will artificial intelligence replace human intelligence? Will it act as a hindrance to human excellence? This is a question from Mrs. Jagadambal.
Okay, so I'll ask the question. I'll answer this through a question itself. If there is a robot walking around in the road, and if there is somebody hit in the road, will the robot stop to take care of the person that has met with an accident, call up ambulance? It's subjective, because we need to think through whether the person who trained the algorithm or the robot itself is kind enough to think through that. But then somewhere at the back of our mind, if we see an accident, we will think through that, oh, I don't know what the person has gone through the accident, whether he has survived, somebody has called an ambulance. And then some people may go to the far extreme and say they'll park the vehicle, go to the accident site itself, and then call an ambulance and make sure that the person gets the right treatment. So if you ask me whether robo would do that step, the answer would be no, because that's where you get the human excellence and humanity into the picture itself.
Actually, there is one more question. Can I add?
Yeah.
This is from Dr. Nazreen Begum. Currently, almost every large nation is spending a lot of resources on the creation of weapons that can be used in upcoming conflicts. This is a dangerous precedent for the application of AI. Please explain.
Oh, okay. So I thought I already explained this, but then let me iterate the answer for the benefit of others. In the field of artificial intelligence, there has been a debate about ethics of using the algorithms itself that brings about a termination to some of their lives itself. One of the projects that was going on in one of the large companies is use of artificial intelligence in warfare. And the people who actually developed the algorithms put their foot down and said, if you're going to be using the algorithm, I'm walking out the door. I'll be very honest, this happened. I've witnessed this. And then they came back and said, if you're going to be using this in widespread use of autonomous warfare, then we will expose this. And then they staged the protest that went on for a week. And then obviously the big company had to bow down and withdraw from the project. And this project was worth billions and billions of dollars for the company. But then the people who actually created it wanted to be ethically used and not bring about termination of a life. So the point that I'm bringing back to the fourth every now and then is, it's about how you train the algorithm. That's what you're going to be seeing the result. If you train the algorithm with a good intent, you will reap benefits. But then if they train the algorithm with a malicious intent, then that's not the way that it should be trained. And the people are very, very vigilant that any of the intelligence algorithm that is being trained anywhere and everywhere in the world doesn't land up in the malicious people's hands.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar, for enlightening us. May I now request Dr. Vijaya to continue the session?
Thank you, sir, for an excellent, informative session. I think ma'am's having some connection issues, so I'll go ahead with the consolidated report of the FTP. The 5-day international webinar series on COVID-19, Facing Challenges with Optimism, as part of faculty development program organized by the PG and Research Department of Historical Studies, Kaide Millet Government College, Puduman, began on June 8, 2020, and it concludes today. We have more than 500 participants throughout the program, and the participants include faculty from USA, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Sri Lanka, Vietnam as well. Our Indian participants are from all over India, from the northeast to Mumbai, from Delhi and Punjab to Kanyakumari. We are happy with the overwhelming response. The Faculty Development Program was inaugurated by Padma Shri Dr. V. Mohan, Chairman and Chief Diabetologist, Dr. Mohan Diabetes Specialty Center. He delivered a lecture on healthy living at the time of COVID-19. He gave an introduction on COVID-19 and how to lead a healthy lifestyle. He also stressed on the importance of diet and exercise. The resource person for the second day was Dr. N. Elilan, consultant physician and diabetologist, Kaveri Hospital. He gave a clear picture on the history of pandemics. He highlighted several pandemics of the past and how they were identified, and therefore one should not fear pandemics, rather be smart and maintain social distancing and follow self-isolation to protect themselves and others. On the third day, we were joined by dietitian P.S. Uma Maheshwari, clinical nutritionist, Happy Living Diet Clinic, Vietnam. Her lecture on nutrition and immunity simplified how we can maintain a healthy diet even during the tough times of a lockdown. Her simple examples of alternative food style to develop and maintain immunity was an eye-opener. The penultimate day of the series was addressed by Mr. Murli Srinivasan, Country Coordinator, USA, World Community Service Center. His lecture on life skills for health and success focused on life skills needed to maintain the health of mind, body, and energy. And today we had a session with Mr. G.M. Bhaskar, Product Manager, HP Enterprise USA, who spoke on artificial intelligence at tipping point, the progress made in artificial intelligence and how it can and will help us in our lives. Lastly, this program wouldn't have been a success without the support and encouragement from our dear participants. Encouraging and positive feedback has been constantly pouring in from all our participants. Thank you, dear participants. With that, I conclude my report and hand over the session to Dr. K. Vijaya, convener of the FPT, for the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, John Ruby. We have come to the fag end of the session. Here, I would like to thank all the participants for their overwhelming response and the successful conduct of this FDP webinar. I always believe, so far as the vote of thanks is concerned, it is the emotional expression. As George Bernard Shaw says, if you want to reach the audience through their ears, you can talk in any language. If you want to reach the audience heart, you have to talk in your mother tongue. I believe in this quote, so let me switch over to my mother tongue, Tamil, and also I will make it bilingual for the sake of international participants. அனைவருக்கும் எனது பணிவான வணக்கம். இந்த 5 நாள் மின்வழி கருத்தரங்கை மிக சிறப்பாக நடத்துவதற்கு எங்களுக்கு ஆக்கமும் ஊக்கமும் அளித்த எங்கள் கல்லூரி முதல்வர் அவர்களுக்கு எங்களது மனமார்ந்த நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். இந்த நிகழ்வை நடத்துவதற்கு எங்களுக்கு முழு ஒத்துழைப்பு கொடுத்து இந்த ஒரு வாய்ப்பை நல்கிய எங்கள் கல்லூரி ஆட்சி மன்ற குழு உறுப்பினர்கள் அனைவருக்கும் எங்கள் நெஞ்சார்ந்த நன்றியை தெரிவிக்கின்றோம். நாங்கள் அழைத்தவுடன் எந்தவித மறுப்பும் சொல்லாமல் உடனடியாக எங்களுக்கு இதற்கு உதவிக்கரம் நீட்டிய எங்களது அனைத்து கருத்தரங்க சொற்பொழிவாளர்களுக்கும் எங்களது நெஞ்சார்ந்த நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றோம். Our special thanks to Padma Shri Dr. V. Mohan, Dr. N. Elilan, dietitian Uma Maheshwari, Mr. Murali Srinivasan, Mr. G.M. Bhaskar for their kind cooperation and support for the successful conduct of this program. Thank you very much, all of you. I would like to mention special thanks to Dr. Deepa Mohan, Head Department of Epidemiology, Dr. Mohan Diabetes Center, and Mrs. Jagadambal, Assistant Professor, Department of Human Excellence, NGM College, Pollachi, for helping us in arranging the resource person. இந்த ஒரு கருத்தரங்கை நடத்த வேண்டும் என்று நாங்கள் முடிவு செய்த பொழுது எந்த ஒரு பிளாட்ஃபார்ம் சூஸ் பண்ண வேண்டும் என்று நாங்கள் முடிவு செய்தோம். அப்பொழுது எங்களுக்கு இந்த வெபினார் ஜாம் என்று ஒன்று உள்ளது, இதன் மூலமாக நீங்கள் தாராளமாக செய்யலாம் என்று எங்களுக்கு எடுத்துரைத்த மிஸ்டர் மஞ்சுநாதன் IQAC coordinator of Ponneri College. We extend our heartfelt thanks to you, sir, for your cooperation and support and in guiding us. And we also extend our heartfelt thanks to our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Anand Seshai, HOD of Computer Science, Kaidamillu Government College, for giving constant encouragement. ஒரு வரலாற்று துறையினரால் ஒரு கணினி கருத்தரங்கை நடத்த முடியுமா என்று நாங்கள் அச்சப்பட்ட பொழுது, உங்களால் முடியாதது எதுவும் இல்லை, நீங்கள் சாதிக்கலாம், எங்களுக்கு உற்சாகமூட்டிய ஆனந்தி சேஷசாயி அவர்களுக்கு எங்களது நெஞ்சார்ந்த நன்றி தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். இந்த கருத்தரங்கு முதல் நாள் அன்று ஒரு மின்சார தடை காரணமாகவும் பல தொழில்நுட்ப கோளாறு காரணமாகவும் பல்வேறு பிரச்சனைகளை நாங்கள் சந்தித்த பொழுது, கடவுள் இருக்கின்றாரா இல்லையா என்பதை கேள்வி அல்ல, எங்களுக்கு ஒரு தன்னம்பிக்கை கொடுத்து எங்களை உற்சாகப்படுத்திய இயற்பியல் துறையின் துறை தலைவர் டாக்டர் பிரவீனா அவர்களுக்கு எங்களது சிறப்பான நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். ஒவ்வொரு நாளும் காலையில் அவர் எங்களுக்கு ஒரு பிரேயர் கோட் என்று சொல்வார்களே, ஒரு இதயபூர்வமான கோட் ஒன்றை அனுப்பி வைத்து துணிச்சலாக செய்யுங்கள், நல்லதாக நடக்கும் என்ற ஒரு நம்பிக்கை எங்களுக்கு ஊட்டினார். அன்னார் அவர்களுக்கு எங்களது மனமார்ந்த நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். This program would not have been a great success without the team effort. இது ஒரு கை தட்டினால் ஓசை அல்ல, ஆனால் இது ஒரு குழுவின் நடவடிக்கை. இந்த குழுவுக்கு துணிச்சலாக தடைக்கற்களை படிக்கற்களாக்கி சிக்கல்களை சிதிலமடை செய்து சாதனை சிகரத்தில் ஏறி பறக்கலாம் என்று எங்களை உற்சாகப்படுத்திய எங்கள் துறையின் கடைக்குட்டி செல்வி ஜோன் ரூபி அவர்களுக்கு எனது சிறப்பார்ந்த நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். இந்த நிகழ்வு முழுக்க வெற்றி அடைவதற்கு அவர்களது அயராத உழைப்புதான் காரணம் என்பதை இங்கு நான் பதிவு செய்ய விரும்புகின்றேன். அடுத்ததாக, இந்த கேள்வி கணைகள் தொடுக்கப்பட்ட பொழுது அந்த கேள்வி கணைகளை உள்வாங்கி, ஏனென்றால் உங்களுக்கு நன்றாக தெரியும், நாம் எல்லாம் இந்த கணினி யுகத்தில் வாழ்ந்து கொண்டிருந்தாலும் இதற்கு முழுமையாக நாம் பழக்கப்பட்டவர்கள் அல்ல என்றாலும் கூட, இந்த கணினி யுகத்தில் எப்படி அந்த கேள்வி கணைகளை தொகுக்க வேண்டும், அந்த கேள்வி கணைகளை எப்படி அடுத்தடுத்து கேட்க வேண்டும் என்பதை மிக சிறப்பாக செய்து கொடுத்த எங்கள் துறையில் உதவி பேராசிரியர் டாக்டர் சுமபாலா அவர்களுக்கு எனது சிறப்பான நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். இந்த சிறப்பு கருத்தரங்கு வெற்றி பெறுவதற்கு உதவி செய்த எங்கள் துறை தோழர்கள் அனைவருக்கும் எங்களது நெஞ்சார்ந்த நன்றியையும் வணக்கத்தையும் பாராட்டுதல்களையும் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். இறுதியாக, இந்த விழா நாயகர்களாக விளங்கிய இந்த கருத்தரங்கின் பங்கேற்பாளர்கள், உங்களது ஆக்கமும் ஒத்துழைப்பும் தான் எங்களை உற்சாகப்படுத்தியது, இந்த விழா வெற்றி பெறுவதற்கு அடிப்படை காரணமாக இருந்தது. நீங்கள் இல்லை என்றால் இந்த விழா வெற்றி படியை நோக்கி சென்றிருக்காது. உங்கள் அனைவருக்கும் எங்களது உளமார்ந்த நன்றிகளையும் வணக்கங்களையும் பாராட்டுதல்களையும் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். ஏனென்றால் வார்த்தைகளால் விவரிக்க முடியாத ஒரு பாராட்டு என்றால் அது உங்களுடைய ஒத்துழைப்பும் உற்சாகமான வார்த்தைகளும் தான் என்றால் அது மிகையாகாது. இறுதியாக, இந்த இணைய வழி கருத்தரங்கின் மூலம் எங்கள் வரலாற்றுத்துறை காயிதே மில்லத் கல்லூரி வரலாற்றில் ஒரு மைல்கல்லை பதித்திருக்கின்றது என்பதை நான் பெருமையுடன் கூறிக்கொள்கின்றேன். வரலாற்றுத்துறை வரலாறு படைத்திருக்கின்றது என்பதை நான் ஆணித்தரமாக இங்கு சொல்வதில் கடமைப்பட்டிருக்கின்றேன். இந்த கருத்தரங்கம் நிறைவு பெறுவதற்கு முழு ஒத்துழைப்பு கொடுத்த என் குடும்பத்தாருக்கும், எல்லாம் வல்ல இறைவனுக்கும், என் சுற்றத்தினருக்கும், துறை நண்பர்களுக்கும், நல்ல உள்ளங்களுக்கும், அனைத்து நண்பர்களையும் பாராட்டி வாழ்த்தி வணங்கி விடைபெறுகின்றேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
Thank you, dear participants. You will find the feedback link in the chat box. Please fill it up before you leave the webinar jam. Thank you. Thank you for all the positive feedback, dear participants.
Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar, Mr. G.M. Bhaskar, for having spared your time on the odd day of your schedule. This is midnight, 12 o'clock for you. We do understand. Despite all the hindrance, you were able to cooperate with us. Thank you very much once again on behalf of the organization team. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ruby, please remain online 15 minutes. Let
Yes,
the
ma'am. I will be
participants
online.
then you can wind up the session. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you once again for your kind cooperation, Dr. Sumabala and Dr. Ruby.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Participants, kindly note, we will send you a consolidated feedback form via mail. Kindly fill that up and the certificates will reach you all within 10 days. Thank you.